И здесь у меня просто очевидная вещь. Ну, не сдавайтесь. Не надо, нельзя сдаваться. Если это произошло, это означает, что мы необыкновенно сильны в этот момент, раз они решили меня убить.
I worked as an investigative journalist, outing Russian spies and assassins and exposing the Kremlin's interference in Africa, Europe, and America. This work has obviously earned me some powerful enemies.
There is no other Navalny, no spare Navalny, no other person like him.
I'm Clarissa Ward from CNN, and the brave and brilliant Leonid Volkov and Christo Grozev don't need any introduction, as you saw there. I want to jump right in because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to start with you, Christo. Was Alexey Navalny murdered?
Well, he was murdered, whatever the actual facts on the ground are, and we're still looking through them, and the foundation is making probably the most thorough investigation in their history. He was murdered because just placing him there, sending him to the most remote prison camp in Russia and giving him the treatment or the mistreatment, even without the final say-so, would have been murder. But I think there was more than that, but it's too early. I mean, I don't want to comment on a pending investigation.
Well, you may have seen this Wall Street Journal article, Leonid.
No, I'm not an investigator myself, so I don't have any professional ethics here. So I'm a mathematician and I'll use logic. Every step of Alexei Navalny during his 3 years of being tortured in different penal colonies was on cameras from all possible angles. Every of his guards had a body cam, and even when he went to toilet and whatever. So everything was on camera. And there is no footage from the last hours of his life, and the only visible explanation is that this footage is not comparable with the official reason of death of natural sources.
What do you make of this Wall Street Journal article that said that the CIA had said that it wasn't ordered by Putin?
As I commented for WSJ article, it's a naivety at its purest. So as we discussed, we can't think that it is possible that he just died from natural causes. Otherwise, they would be happily leaking all the medical documentations and footage and whatever. If it would be consistent with the death of natural causes, we would be overflooded with materials proving that, but they have nothing. So he was murdered. Now, to imagine that anyone can give an order to murder him without getting Putin's approval is understanding nothing about how Russia operates these days. I mean, this hypothetical government official giving this order without asking Putin's consent or approval, how does he know what are Putin's plans for Navalny? To include him into a prisoner swap, or maybe to torture him, to cut him into pieces, like personally in his palace in the Black Sea, or whatever his plans might be. But I mean, everyone knows that whatever happens to Navalny is like guided by Putin personally.
Totally agree, and I will only comment that Wall Street Journal slightly exaggerated what they were told, from my understanding, by the intelligence services. The intelligence service said they had no information about what happened really, and the Wall Street Journal, probably led by the very legitimate reason to want to continue the negotiations for a swap of their colleague, and that's a very legitimate reason, did not want to put Putin in a corner. I can understand that.
So, Christo, I know you can't talk about the details of the investigation, but you can certainly talk more broadly speaking about the way Putin has exported this brand of terror, per the title of our discussion, and how that's kind of evolved since we first covered your extraordinary investigation into the poisoning of Navalny, right to this current moment we're in. What do you see as the sort of arc, the change?
Well, the change is reflected in the title of this panel. It's Outsourcing of Violence, and that's something that existed in sort of minuscule doses before. But what really changed is that now the majority of the extraterritorial violence is outsourced. And the reasons for this phenomenon is at least twofold. One is the success of private military companies on the military front. That was something that didn't exist until 10 years ago. 2013, 2014, Putin discovered that he can, at zero cost to himself, political and financial, outsource violence abroad through Wagner and through other companies that popped up after that to Africa and to any territory, to Ukraine. That was a successful model. Showed him that he doesn't have to pay a public price for failure, but he could take the credit for success. Same thing. Okay, let's do it now internationally on pursuit of persecution of activists, persecution of journalists, persecution of foreign adversaries. And that is even safer for Putin than doing it on the front line with a private military company, because a private military company has the potential to take him down, as Wagner tried to. But the people that roam around the world and try to assassinate activists, they cannot do anything at home. So this is the first reason. The second reason is the shortage of actual professional spies that he is running into. And partly that shortage was created by us, the cumulative investigative journalists and activists, because we exposed so many of them. And we didn't expose single ones, we exposed whole groups and passport series, and they can't use any of their GRU killers anymore because they assume they're burnt. They can't use any of the FSB killers of the type that went after the Chechen, Georgian asylum seeker in Germany, because they're friends, they're part of a friends group, and they're all outed.
So now they're using thugs.
Now they're using thugs, right. And the thugs are the equivalent of the mercenaries in the Wagner situation. But this comes with a whole host of new problems.
And Leonid, hello, if anyone knows about the problems of thugs, you were brutally assaulted.
No, I mean, I would prefer what happened to me compared to like a properly trained GRU assassin. So, so there is an upside.
You're glass half full.
I said problems
I like that. So tell us about what happened to you. I think we have a couple of photographs of it as well.
Well, that's a story I told like 20 times already, but I mean, it was like
give us 21.
March 12th, 10 p.m. I'm getting back home, like late in the evening. It's dark. I parked the car in front of my house in a like suburb of Vilnius. I switched off the ignition. At this point, the driver's windows smashed. So there are shards of glass in my face. I think I'm being shot. So that was a not very uncomfortable thought. So I kind of like recline on the passenger seat, and I see through this broken window there is a guy who is like pepper spraying me in the eyes. I'm trying to like push him away, like pushing the driver's door. So, and as it happens, so in the other, so in his left hand, he had the pepper spray, and in the right hand, he has a hammer, and he starts to like hammer my left leg. Well, that was a relief, and I saw it's a hammer, not a knife and not a gun. It was already a comforting thought. And after...
Could have been an ice pick.
Maybe after, and not an icebreaker. And maybe after a minute or so, like I realized that, well, first of all, I don't have to try to get out of the car because, cars are made of metal and it kind of protects you from the hammer, at least protects the head. And second, that, well, I have to start like doing noise and signals. And after a while, he runs away. My wife was observing it from inside the house. That's the sad part of the story. Children are sleeping. She can see that, well, I'm being attacked. She has to make the choice, like if she needs to go outside, but she knows she hardly could help. and this would put children at risk. That was, of course, terrible. And she saw the second guy who was at the passenger door. So, well, it was a smart decision not to try to get out of the car. But then they ran away, and, well, soon, hopefully during the court hearing, because those two guys were arrested recently in Poland, we will know what was their actual task. I don't think, actually, their task was, like, to kill me, but
Scare you?
But probably they had to, like, break me a leg or something like this, but my leg has proven to be hard enough.
So I was about to say, if the task was to scare you or to intimidate you, did it work?
No, and I have to admit that I never experienced anything like this in my life, and I never had any like flashback, any nightmare. I don't see any signs of like a post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't like look up over my shoulder when walking. And partly because probably I was already mentally ill before, because because doing the like Russian opposition job and fighting against Putin is like you need to be a bit crazy, or of course like that's a second so that like the most terrible thing happened on February 16th.
Yeah.
And that was the real trauma, and this is the day I'm like replaying. Always like the day when Alexei was killed, and well, after that, not so many space was left for like bad feelings.
I have to ask you, just like to piggyback onto that point, you talked about the elections in Russia in March as being a propaganda act in spreading hopelessness, and that really stayed with me. And I wonder, in the face of the crushing loss of Alexei, of the brutal crackdown on any form of dissent, on investigative journalism, are you hopeless?
No, I'm not. That's a thing that Alexei was always very good at, like to see the broader picture, to not to focus on the local ups and downs of the like political pendulum. Things can go in better way, wrong way. If we consider the bigger picture, Putin is not getting younger. Putin doesn't have a successor, and he can't have a successor. It's by design. He actually fears that any potential successor might become a threat, like it happened in Kazakhstan very recently and so on. Putin is very carefully distributing different powers. No one is allowed to accommodate all of them. If someone has a lot of like administrative powers, he's not allowed to have like financial resources. If something is like strong financially, he's not allowed to have a lot of media resources. If someone has a lot of media resources, he doesn't allow to have a lot of like force. That's what happened to Prigozhin.
Yeah.
He was running a media, holding a group of mercenaries, and was strong financially, and so became dangerous and was killed. So Putin balances the system quite masterfully, but when he disappears, for whatever reason, aliens take him to Mars, please, or whatever, this system will not be able to find another balance. It will not be able to produce a new Putin because it actually consists of 10 or 12 groups hating each other, competing against each other, and none of these groups being more than like 10% shareholder in the structure of power. And this will present like us, like the civil society, the Russian opposition, with at least a very good window of opportunities.
Yeah. And I have to ask you as well, Christo, because we talked about Leonid's attack. You are also on Russia's wanted list. You have also had your home broken into while your son was in the house, although thank God the attackers didn't seem to realize that. I just wonder what gives you the sort of, and you're not Russian. So what is this about for you fundamentally, and where do you get that kind of clarity of purpose and courage to keep doing incredibly dangerous work?
Well, first of all, the very fact that they broke into my apartment, trying to steal the laptop of our joint work, by the way, the laptop on which the Navalny investigation in 2020 was developed, and they stole the wrong laptop just shows you how incompetent outsourcing. But of course, the professional spies were not much better.
This is exactly why they don't like you.
The professional spies were not much better, as Alexei showed in that call. But the very fact that they broke in when my son was there, it creates such an adrenaline rush for me that, if anything, the effect is worse. I mean, I'm not scared. I'm actually much more eager to investigate. But I think the point of Leonid saying he's happy that they sent non-professionals, I mean, you have to see this as a two-edged knife, because yes, when they're sent to scare somebody, if they're sent to assassinate, it's good to send non-professionals, right? But if they're sending somebody only with the instruction, and that's a thug that they've outsourced to intimidate, then that is a very, very dangerous situation, because these people don't know when to stop. They don't know, they're not trained in extreme situations. So if they were sent only to scare Leonid, but he had put up a fight, or his wife had come out and seen their faces, nobody knows what they would have done that. If my son had walked out of the apartment, their mission of the room, because he was in the room while they were stealing the wrong laptop, their mission was only to steal, but what would have happened if he had seen their faces? The problem is that these non-professional thugs, they don't know how to de-escalate. And that's the real danger here. So that's my answer.
So when we're talking about the future, and I think it's tremendous that you have optimism and hope. And of course, a lot of that is sort of falling on the shoulders of Alexei's widow, Yulia Navalnaya, who came out the day after his death with extraordinary poise and grace and basically said that she would continue to fight the fight. You know how tough the fight is, but what do you hope to see from Yulia? What do you hope for her to be able to achieve?
Oh, well, first of all, like Alexei created this organization and Yulia was always very close to him, not in the public light, but working as his like very close political advisor. So we are on the same page. And as an organization which was founded and developed, built by Alexei, we will support Yulia in whatever she decides to do. But she now does a lot of public political work, like meeting politicians, giving speeches, addressing different audiences, appearing here and there. And from what I see, she decided, and of course she has our full support and we do whatever possible to support her, she decided to take a role of like public representation, in public international representation of those anti-war and anti-Putin Russians, which exist. There are many millions of them. They have to stay silent now because of the enormous repression, but this can change. Like 1987, like there were no like demonstrations in Eastern Europe. 1989, we saw millions of people in the streets in Czechia, East Germany, Baltic states, Romania, Russia, and wherever. What changed? Like the feeling in the air, the understanding that there will be no order from Moscow to shoot in the crowd. And those people, they didn't appear from nowhere, they existed. But they saw a chance to manifest themselves, and they took the streets, they took the power. We strongly believe that the same will happen now. Now people are perfectly aware that like any public dissent will be severely punished, like you will be sent to prison for 10 years or 15 years. Only something happens, Ellens once again, please, and there is no Putin. They feel this vacuum of power, that they feel that there will be no order to shoot. Those people exist. And now they need reinforcements, they need representation, they need to feel that they are not abandoned, not left behind, not forgotten. And that's what Yulia is doing now. I think that's the most important thing a Russian opposition politician can do now.
I think we can all acknowledge that Alexei was an extraordinary individual. And as we close this panel, I just wanted to remind people about something that happened last year at this very event. Alexei had been reading Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein's infamous work and educating himself about the Watergate scandal. And when Woodward and Bernstein were here at this event, Maria Pevchik, who was working very closely with Navalny at the Anti-Corruption Foundation, approached them and showed them this handwritten note from Alexei saying, you know, extraordinary work of investigative journalism it was. And they then were bowled over by this and signed a copy for Alexei, which he then posted on social media. And the reason I tell this story is because it highlights something about Alexei, I think, which is so crucially important, which is that in spite of absolute crushing misery and privation, he was still curious, he was still humorous, he was still animated. And I guess my final question to you, and we're a little bit over time, so we have to be very quick. You know, there's that profound moment at the end of Navalny, the film, where he says, "Don't do nothing. If they kill me, it means we're getting somewhere. Don't do nothing." So my final quick question to both of you, how do you continue to heed Alexei's call to action?
I'll give a very short answer. One of the sequence of letters I got from Alexei from jail focused on an obsession he had, which was to create a technological device allowing journalists, investigative journalists, to find out if they're being followed by spies or by thugs or by organized crime figures. It was based, we had discussed this when he was still free, but he didn't forget that. He kept sending me messages, how do we make this? Send me a description of this device. It was going to be something that is capturing a repeated mobile telephone signal that follows you around. But that just shows you a little thing that you can do to actually continue his deed, and that's what I will do. So what about you?
For us, we have to preserve and, to develop Alexei's legacy, which is his political ideas, his vision for the future of Russia, and the organization that he left behind, the foundation, the Anti-Corruption Foundation, with all its political projects and initiatives being the leading force of the Russian opposition, to see this beautiful Russia of the future that Alexei Navalny dreamed of. Well, it is to build it, to arrive there is the only way to make his enormous sacrifice not to be in vain.
Leonid Volkov, Christo, Grozev, thank you so much.